Hi, my name's Kate Sargent from the Department of Primary Industries in Victoria. I'm the EverGraze project leader, and today I'm going to show you how to use the feed budget and rotation planner to work out how many hectares you need for a mob of lambing ewes. Okay, so when you first go into the feed budget and rotation planner, you need to go into data entry. Okay, you'll see three columns here: the simple feed budgets, planning ahead, and other useful tools. The one we need is under the simple feed budgets. How many hectares do I need? Alright, so when we get in here, we have to say how much feed we think we're going to have on offer at the start of the grazing period when we put the ewes in. Okay, so to work that out, you can use Table 6. Table 6 gives you a guide as to how many centimetres and the density of the pasture correlating to how much feed on offer is available. So, for example, 6 centimetres of a moderate density pasture is about 1600 kilos per hectare. I think that's about how much I'm going to have, so I'll put 1600 in here. Another way to work out how many kilos per hectare you have is to go to the Lifetime Wool website. And you can see here they've got a little food gallery on their website. And so I think my pasture looks somewhere between this 1500 kilos and my 1700 kilos here, so 1600 kilos is probably not too far off the mark. Okay, so the desired food on offer when you take the animals out of the paddock. I think I'd like to have my lambing ewes maintaining themselves through this period if I can. So Table 5 gives you a little bit of a guide as to how much feed the animals actually require. So I've got lactating ewes. These are the singles, so single lambs on them, and they're going to need 1000 kilos per hectare to maintain themselves. Okay, so 1000 kilos goes in here. Now, as I've mentioned previously on other clips, the other things you need to consider when determining how much food on offer you need to have when you take the stock out of the paddock is the amount that you need for a perennial pasture to persist, which is about 800 kilos per hectare, so don't graze below that level. And obviously it's going to grow faster with a bit more leaf area, so between 1200 kilos per hectare and 2200 kilos per hectare will have your pasture growing as quick as it can. Okay, pasture quality. So the pasture quality of my pasture, it's going to be winter, so I think it's going to be around 75% digestibility. I've got about 15 to 30% clover in this paddock, so I'll select that. The consumption wastage factor is the wastage factor caused by the animals, so this is for fouling and for trampling the pastures, and it'll be particularly high if you've got very wet pastures with pugging, etc. But most pastures sort of sit around 30%. Now the decay wastage factor is only used in late spring and summer. It's used for the amount of pasture that decays and blows away. So you might use this for very low stocking rates during the growing season, but generally just ignore it during the rest of the year. So I'll put 0%. The pasture growth of this pasture, well, we're going to be in June. So I've got Table 7 tells me that in June a good pasture will grow around 20 kilos per hectare. Now obviously this is going to vary widely depending on where you are, what the soil temperature is, how much rain you've had, and your soil fertility. So you need, the best way to work this out is definitely to measure it yourself from month to month. However, the Making More from Sheep website does provide a bit of a guide for different regions. For this particular pasture, I'm just going to say that it's going to be growing about 20 kilos per hectare per day. The number of days you want to leave the animals in the paddock. Well, I joined these animals for 42 days, so I'm going to say that they're going to stay in that paddock for 42 days for lambing. So I'm going to stick 42 days in there. Okay, now the type of animals I've got, obviously they are going to be ewes, and there's going to be 60 kilos, and they're lactating, and the number of animals, it's a mob of single ewes with 300 ewes in there. Okay, so with all of that worked out, it tells me that my consumption per head per day is going to be 2.5 kilos per head. My energy consumption is going to be adequate at 25.8 megajoules, and the total area required in hectares is about 28 hectares. Okay, now what happens if I want to throw in that same paddock a mob of weaner cattle? So I'll put the weaner cattle in there, and their average weight is going to be about 300 kilos, and obviously their physiological state in terms of their pregnancy is not relevant, and the number of animals grazing, let's just say I want to throw in 50 head in this paddock. And you can see that if I want to graze 50 head of cattle in there as well as my lambing ewes, then I'm going to need 43 hectares for those ewes. So this is just a simple little tool that you can use to, at the time of lambing in particular, to work out which animals are you going to put in which paddocks and how big do they need to be. Okay, so back to the main menu. And for further information, see the EverGraze website on www.evergraze.com.au, and I've recorded some clips on the other feed budget tools, so perhaps you can go and review them if you're interested. Thank you very much.